The Joe Rogan Experience.
I met Adrian Carmack at a bar in Texas, which was fucking awesome. And it was funny because he started telling me, like, well, if you guys are going to make it, we were in production on Doom Eternal. He's like, if you guys are going to make a Doom game, here's what we thought when we made Doom. And everything he listed, we were all like, that's what we think. Like, he's like, we just did stuff that made us laugh and made us smile. I'm like, that's what we say. Like, it was cool. He was super nice. So to me, id Software is kind of like Disney. Like, they invented a genre, and we are part of the new generation there, and we have a legacy to live up to. Like, yeah, it's a really special place to work. I've a tremendous amount of I don't want to say pressure, but we're all motivated.
Yeah, well, it's you're working at the highest spot. That's like if you go. I mean, if you think about it's like if it's rap, you're at Death Row Records. You know what I mean? You're like at the highest spot.
And the coolest thing is like the type of games that they have always made. Just they are able to get away with things that a lot of mainstream AAA games struggle with, just because of how violent it is. I mean, they are like, again, it's Evil Dead 3 with a Transformers budget. Like, who the fuck gets to make that? Like,
right.
Like the shit you see, we spend a shitload of time making that stuff.
Oh, I
like,
can only imagine.
Whereas, like, in a lot of situations I've been in, it's like, yeah, we want to cut this dude in half. It's like, oh, we don't have a lot of money for that, dude, so do it pretty fast. Like, we're like, there are artists, like craftsmen, working on the entrails. Like, this looks pretty good. And literally the notes are like, I need like the intestine to kind of like flap a little when you get the thing off, like, and it's...
How do you know if you've crossed the line? Has there ever been a time when you had a scene and people like dial that back? We actually tonally, you say, how do you start the project? It's kind of like there's a fair amount of brainstorming, and the strength of any creative team is at least for a game, is how you brainstorm with each other. It's the synergy in that room has to be good. You got to be selfless. You got to show up. You got to be willing to support other ideas, other people's ideas just as much as your own. We have a fucking amazing group in that regard. But tonally, we try to establish that like, look, guys, we're not making Saw, we're not making Hostile, it's not malicious, it's not meant to make you cringe. And we actually cut together a little video of like what we thought violence-wise was inappropriate and tonally felt off. And then we made another video of what felt right, and that was Evil Dead 2 with like, it's not a slow trickle of blood out of a sliced open wrist. It is some dude's head came off and Hawaiian Punch just starts fucking shooting out of his head, that's really what it is. Like, it's cartoonish, Cartoonish
and
violence.
It goes so far that because the thing is, you do this so much, so often. I mean, you are murdering demons per minute. Like, I don't know what it is, but it's fucking crazy. If it was off-putting and realistic and kind of like, ooh, you'd be so turned off. It'd be sick. Like, you'd make you sick after a while. But so
That's a weird way of looking at it. I don't think you're right. What you're doing is like super gory and disgusting. You think somehow or another that will make you less sick? Well, that it was more realistic and less bloody?
Oh, for sure. I mean,
what?
Tonally, we could twist that where every one of those is mean-spirited and really off-putting, for sure. I mean,
okay, I don't want you to sell me some PR stuff to sort of defend your game against people that are anti-violence, because that's what it sounds like. What you're doing is super bloody and disgusting and violent. To say that somehow or another that is less off-putting than less gory is that's a ridiculous argument. I don't want you using it here or anywhere else.
Well, it's Joseph. It is not. This is no PR. This is legit.
It sounds like you've been coached.
No. Like, this is my message to the team. I mean, sincerely, like...
Okay, you're coaching them.
Well, because they make the content. So,
right.
Like, think of this. All right, I like this, because this is the fucking truth. So, you look at Saw. You look at torture porn, horror movies. They're cutting Achilles tendons with a fucking X-Acto knife, and the dude is screaming in pain. And he's a person. Like... This is gnarly shit. He doesn't look like he's having a good time. Like, versus on Evil Dead 2, when you lop off the head of that one grandma creature that comes up out of the basement, and like fucking buckets of blood start coming out of her head.
Right. It's cartoonish.
So like, it's critical. Zero PR spin. That is, we have to believe that, because look, your design story is going to be exposed to the consumer in 2 fucking seconds. Like, they can see through your bullshit in 5 seconds. If they're like, dude, you're trying to sell... No, like... So we have to have an honest, good design story that we can stand behind, that is true. And that is the truth. I mean, we basically looked at, like, cartoons and, like, make it over the top. The animation... So every time... Here's a perfect example. Every time you murder a cacodemon, which is those flying balls, you pull out their eyeball.
What is it called? A caca?
A cacodemon.
Caca? What's the spell it?
C-A-C C-A-C-O. Oh, C-A-C-O.
Don't you have kids? You have kids, right?
I do. I have 3 kids.
It's caca. You're saying caca demon. It's a poo-poo demon.
Sure. So every time you pull out his eyeball, you literally hear like a, I can't do it, but
sound.
Like a funny, cartoony sound. And that is absolutely intentional to take the edge off what you're doing. Because if it was more gruesome and it's The Exorcist versus Evil Dead 2. Those are tonally 2 completely different movies. House. House was a movie that came out in the 80s that was inspired by Evil Dead. That's like a fucking comedy. I mean, it is a comedy. And it's a horror comedy. Versus The Exorcist, which is fucking amazing. Fucking amazing. But really very serious, And that's how we're able to do what we do.
Okay, stop selling it. Stop selling the violence thing. I get it. I see what you're saying. Dude, whenever I think about old school doctors, I think about the scene in The Wolfman with Benicio del Toro where they're running exams on him in one of those medical theaters.
Yeah.
They used to have medical theaters where people would sit in the stands and look down and watch people perform operations.
Oh, yeah.
So students could just sit there. People could just sit there and watch. It was like a theater.
Right. Coughing.
How fucking weird is that?
Right.
I mean, in the Wolfman movie, that's when Benicio del Toro becomes the Wolfman in front of all these people. They got them all strapped in. But the people that are in that audience, they're just gawkers.
Yeah.
Just sitting there watching some guy saw some dude's leg off. Ah! 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 They got him biting down on leather and shit.
Dude,
Fuck.
what would you pay to do that, though? Sit in that audience.
Jesus Christ. I don't want to see that. You'd be so freaked out.
But, I mean, people go to see horror movies. They want to get freaked out.
Yeah, but that's not real.
I know.
Part of what's fun about horror...
This is like...
Part of what's fun about horror movies is it's not real violence.
Yeah.
I had a conversation about that with Hugo Martin. He's the creative director for Doom, which is Doom Eternal. This is a new video game. And in the video game, the Doom Eternal, first of all, looks insane. It looks so good. But the gore is so over the top. Like, you're ripping people's heads off and blood spraying. They're all like zombie people.
Yeah.
You're like cutting them in half with a chainsaw, like crazy shit, blowing them up. And he was like, because it's so over the top. It's cartoonish.
Yeah.
It's less disturbing than like if it was more realistic. And I was
Right.
okay. I was
Yeah.
like arguing it a little bit, but I've been thinking about it a lot. Like whether or not that makes any sense. Like it's one of those thoughts that's stuck in my head.
Yeah, it's like Tarantino movies. Like, in that scene where they have that sword fight in that Chinese restaurant.
Which one's Kill Bill?
And Kill Bill. And Uma Thurman is just fucking slaying. And there's like 4 inches of blood on the floor when she's done.
That's right.
Because it's a comic book. So it doesn't, after a while, you're kind of laughing.
Dude, his movies are so hyper violent.
Yeah.
I forgot when we were talking recently about Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, the scene in the end when, people are just getting smashed.
Yeah.
It's like, whoa, you forgot.
Yeah.
You forgot, like, some of the scenes that guy's put in movies.
Right.
But is that less disturbing somehow than something that's, like, more realistic violence? I don't know. Like, is that more disturbing, here's a perfect example, than Silence of the Lambs. The Silence of the Lambs, that scene with Jodie Foster in the end was so realistic.
Yeah.
Like, you really felt trapped with her. You're like, fuck. Like, something real. But did you feel like that when you're watching Once Upon a Time in Hollywood? No, you're watching, like, spectacle.
Right.
Like, you enjoyed it. It was great. It was a great movie. But it was, like, spectacle more than I have genuine anxiety because I'm worried what's going to happen to her.
Right.